Hello YouTube, this is RL coming to you again from my channel. Welcome back to another episode of Retro Life, where we review video games from the 1980s and 1990s. And welcome back, CK.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
Alright, so we review everything on a like, love, and loathe scale with graphics, music, sound effects, gameplay, controls, difficulty, fun factor, replay value, and story if applicable. So we are going to be reviewing the classic game for the Sega Genesis. Pretty much I shouldn't have to say that. All our games have been Sega Genesis the last few times. So, Alisia Dragoon.
Yes, Alisia Dragoon. A very interesting game. I've never heard of this game until you had brought it up. And after playing it, it was pretty neat. It's basically about a young girl whose father, I think he was a sorcerer, who was fighting against evil, was killed when she was young. And now she's plotting revenge to stop the second coming of this menace, the final boss of the game. You play as Alisia, who is a sorceress and shoots lightning from her hands. The game was released in 1992 for the Genesis, and it's a pretty interesting game.
Alright, so let's get started with graphics first. What did you think of the graphics in Alisia Dragoon, CK?
The graphics were fantastic, really and truly. The background environments are stunning and detailed. The parallax use, which Sega was primarily known for in their game design, more so than Nintendo, really gave you that depth in it. Colorful game in a way that's not cartoony. The pixel shading on the character, and the character's large enough for you, to really make out the armor and the hair, and you can see the details. The special effects were nice. The bosses are cool. The level design is your platformer, but it does have varying heights, as opposed to some of them where you kind of just jump on platforms on a similar level. This one definitely makes use of movement up and down in the game, and I love the anime feel. Gainax, which was who they kind of co-developed the game with, is a production company that does animation and stuff, and they do a lot of heavy anime stuff, and I got that feel right from the start. And because it's got that good vibe, and it's got a cool character, and it's got a great concept, I give the game retro double love.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Yeah, you really loved it.
Yeah,
that's great. Especially since it's a game you never even heard of before, so there's no sentimentality in this review for you. So that's pretty cool that you liked it. Yeah, awesome. So graphics for me, really detailed, colorful. I think it's one of the better looking games in the system. I say that often, but we usually choose games that are decently looking in graphics. I don't think we've reviewed a game on the Sega Genesis that had bad graphics. Maybe I don't know, maybe the oldest game we did was the Ghouls and Ghosts for Sega Genesis. It kind of was a little bit not as detailed as some of the more modern Genesis. I should say modern, but more of the older Genesis games that came out. This one came out in 92, so it definitely had a few years to use the system's capable graphics chip to its best of its ability, right? So yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. The graphics, very colorful, very detailed, and just beautiful to look at. It was like eye candy for my brain, I really I enjoyed all the different animations and the dragons and the colors of the dragons, and so the details on the buildings and the environments, it impressed me. So I'm going to give it a retro double love as well. Not competing, but just felt it deserved a retro double love because the graphics were very, very, very sharp and colorful, and that's what I like. Colorful and sharp. Good combination for me. So let's move on to music. What did you think of the music in this game, CK?
I like the music. It was well composed. Definitely set the tones for each of the environments that you were in. It didn't come off as very soundtracky type music, so I wouldn't say that I'd play any of this stuff outside of the game. I enjoyed it for the game, in the game, but I wouldn't be caught playing any of the music like in an MP3 player, or just happen to have it on some other playlist as just an audio file. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's still very well composed, and it set the mood. And I think for a lot of games, especially in this era, and especially on the Genesis, which the sound chip on that is one of the things that people shot for. You made great use of the sound chip. Is quality, immersive music, and they got that. It's not incredible, but it worked. It's subtle and it's varying, and I enjoyed it. And because of that, it gets a retro love.
Nice. Retro love. Yeah. I'm going to have I think we're going to agree on this a lot. I think this is going to be one of our first reviews where we are matching up in score, because so far it's leaning to that. We're very much usually polar opposites. Well, not completely. So music for me is really upbeat, and I wrote dynamic. Very enjoyable. I love what's the one I'm trying to think of? Da-da-da-da. Everything sounds the same. I'm tone deaf. I think I'm tone deaf, CK. Every time I try to do music on here, it's like I try to say it, it just comes off the exact same tune.
Right.
Remember Blades of Steel and the other games? I was like trying to. There's one track where it's like da-da-da-da-da. No, not even gonna try.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get it.
I don't think I'm gonna get it, but it's really good. I'm just gonna make sure that when I have the music up when we're talking right now, so people will hear that track, because I think it's really, really awesome. I wish I wasn't tone deaf. I don't think I'm really tone deaf. I just can't take the music from my brain into my mouth. Alright, but yeah, music is really awesome. I enjoyed it. It was not annoying. Very well composed. You could always tell when a game developers don't care about the music, or they just put it in just to put in music because they have to put in music. This one, you could tell they really put some time in it. It's not up there with games like Streets of Rage. I always say Streets of Rage 2, right?
Streets of Rage 2.
But it's really good. I would put top 5.
Nice.
Top 5 in music. Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a retro love as well. We are tied so far.
Nice.
Wonder if it could end up tied. Wouldn't that be cool? It's never happened before, guys. It's never happened. All right.
Nope.
So moving on to sound effects. What did you think of the sound effects in Alisia Dragoon?
The sound effects worked for the game. I know we always kind of say that, and it's one of those kind of, if you don't notice it and it works, then it works. It either enhances the experience, but it could also deter from the experience. And I don't think it did either. It was there. I wish there was more sound effects, actually, because outside of the lightning from her hands, the getting hit, which is that boop, whatever, that beep, blurp
Hiccup
type sound, and that thumping sound when she jumps and lands on something. It could have had more environmental sounds, especially with certain baddies that were on the screen that, it could foreshadow something there, or just give an audible cue that, they are attacking or they are shooting. You didn't get much of that in this game, and I thought it was kind of weird, but then at the same time I'm thinking, 1992, this is a console game. It could have probably had a lot more, but they put so much into audio and into the graphics. Sometimes you just kind of max out, and you're limited, obviously, by a cartridge. It was there, and it worked. I wish there was more, but I'm not going to take away from what they actually provided. And because of that, sound effects gets a retro-like.
I hear what you're saying, CK. I hear what you're saying. So sound effects for me, I felt they were really... I think I liked them better than you did. I don't know. I mean, there were times where I felt they were it was powerful. There was a lot of oomph to the effects, when she had all the powers that she uses, the lightning attacks. They felt powerful, They didn't feel like they were weak. The hiccuping you mentioned every time she gets hit, I didn't like that. That's the one thing that annoyed me about this game when I played it back in the day, because I do have this in my collection. One of the games that I played when I started collecting retro games, this was one of them. And I remember playing it, and I was like, that hiccup was a really weird sound effect. I don't know why they chose that. Everything else sounds really good. Sound effects are sound effects. You really notice them when they're not good, So for me, everything wasn't noticeable, other than the hiccup. That really kind of took away from me the experience, because it happens a lot. If it happened once in a while, in a boss fight, I could forgive it.
Right.
But it happens throughout the game, and I'm like, when you're thinking to yourself, the character needs to drink water and try to get rid of those hiccups, it's not very good.
Right.
And I mean, look, the game's great. I'm not gonna bash it for that one thing. I don't think they were going for cuteness. I just felt it was just weird. I'm gonna just give it a retro double like for sound. I didn't want to copy your score.
dude, just score the game, man. Score the game.
I would have given it a love if it wasn't for the hiccups. So I'm only downgrading from a love. So to be honest, it's still my score. So moving on to gameplay. What did you think of the gameplay in Dragoon? Alisia Dragoon.
I like the gameplay. Outside of the graphics, I think that's what kind of pulled me in. It felt a lot like, classic side-scroll platformer. There were two things in this game that truly make it, say unique, but makes it very interesting. Only a few other games that I've played made use of this and leveraged it to a really good extent. It's not just an add-on that is just there. The character controls are good and they're responsive. Again, they're not pinpoint sharp, but the fact that you can kind of jump and maneuver in air means you can kind of fine-tune your jumps. I've always enjoyed that about games, and not having to gauge distance and height when you're jumping. Those are two things that always annoyed me about games. So if you quick tap a jump, it's a light jump. If you full jump, hold it, full jumps. And if you're in the air, you can move back and forth to just, pinpoint your landing. I enjoyed that. It does feel a bit stilted though. The controls with regards to the movements of the character are nice. It's responsive when you're moving around left and right, when you're moving up and down, traversing the different levels. It works, and everything about the game is nice. The assist character in this is a really cool concept one like they added, and now you don't even just get one, you get 4, and they all have different abilities, which is super cool. It's used to strategize against bosses in the game in certain levels, and they have their own health and they have their own special attack, and it's really neat. And the auto targeting is another one too, because there's baddie storms in this, or like flies and other things that come at you from so many different angles. It's hard to be able to target directional up and down, left and right. If you're within range, it auto targets, and I like that concept. She uses lightning as her weapon. This is her power. It really works in this game. And those two things really made the game stand out, and I enjoyed the gameplay specifically for those two things. This gets a retro love from me.
Awesome. Retro love. Yeah, you really do enjoy this game. And it's really great. I'm glad I introduced you to a game that you never heard of, CK.
Yes.
Payback. And very similar to Shatterhand in the sense that you get these power-up sort of assist bots. As you mentioned. I think you like any game that's reminds you of Shatterhand. So it's okay. That's a good thing. Shatterhand is a great game. Yeah, so gameplay for me, I like to call it dragon picking. I really enjoy that feature. You don't have it in many games. I mean, there are games where you have an assist character, but you don't get 4 different choices, especially in the era of the Sega Genesis. You probably would get more likely to get 1 or 2 max. This one really amps it up. It says, we're giving you 4 choices. That's a lot of choices,
It is.
in that era. So I really like that, and it takes a while to get used to which dragon is the best, and you have to learn how to use them and not waste them, because you can end up using them at wrong points of the game, and then they die too quickly,
That's right.
So it gives you some strategy there, which is really great. The gameplay was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun, and that you could really use your brain. How am I going to preface this, the use of these assist character dragons appropriately,
Yes.
And it's enjoyable. The gameplay is fun. It's not something you see a lot on the system at that time, so it's different, and I like difference. So gameplay gets a love for me. Nice. A retro love. Alright, so moving on to controls. What did you think of the controls in this game, CK?
I like the controls in this game. It didn't feel weird. Some games, when you're playing a character, it may feel a bit slow or may feel a bit fast. It wasn't too fast. It wasn't too slow. The jumping kind of felt a bit odd until I got used to it. Like most games, once you kind of get used to, button placements or your button control and the character's speed in the game, it becomes less of an issue. And for me, after the first level, it pretty much became a non-issue at that point. I understood how fast the character moves. I understood that jumping can be a light jump or a full jump. The character can, move in the air, so you can kind of pinpoint your landing a bit. I'm not saying it's Mario tight, but it definitely is tighter than some other.
Never Mario tight.
Nothing's Mario tight.
No.
That was a huge part about it. And outside of that, nothing else really felt weird. Like the movement of the enemies were quick. And I think that's something about this game that I'll probably touch on in the difficulty side, is that movement in the game is quick. So you really got to be thinking. You got to be on your feet, you got to be on your toes, and respond in kind, but not go bullet hell. It's not like Contra where you can just run and hit spread and just go through the game. This game is a lot more thoughtful that way, and I liked the fact that the control, patience, and quickness is required to really succeed in a game like this. And because of that, it gets a retro love from me.
Retro love. Very consistent review, right? Very consistent.
Good game, man. It's a good game.
Yeah, it is a good game. I'm surprised you never heard of it before. Alright, so controls for me, I found the controls to be very, very good. Fluent. I've never used the word fluent in a review before, so I'm trying to pick different words for every review now. The choice of word today is fluent. The movements are fluent. They're very silky fluent, and I like that. I know it sounds, what is silky fluent movements? It just means you don't feel like you're pressing hard on the D-pad to move the character, and it just feels nice and smooth like butter. So I like that. The jumps, everything, there's not a lot of jumping. It never felt like it was like the jumping is bad. There are a lot of games where the game has some jumping and they did such a terrible job.
No, they did an okay job with this. Like I said, once you kind of get used to the jumping,
they work. It doesn't make the game harder than it has to be, and that's where you play a game and you're just like, man, these controls are just terrible. They're butchering me. And then that makes the game so unfun to play, and it's just like it's harder than it should be, So controls get a retro love for me.
Good stuff.
Seems like we sipped from the same Kool-Aid today. Pretty much the exact same scores across the board. Never happened before. Alright, so moving on to difficulty. What did you think of the difficulty in this game, CK?
The difficulty, it scales up well. It starts off actually kind of challenging, and it may seem that way out of the gate, because when I started to play the game for the first time, walking into first level, I'm like, oh, this is neat. And then, as soon as you're in, not even 5 seconds into the game, you've got swarms bearing down on you, and it's like, oh, okay, well, this is the game. They throw you into the mix right away, and I do like that. It's one of those, it's nice if you can ease into a game and get used to the levels, get used to the boss, get used to the pacing. This one kind of just tosses you in, and it's like, hey, this is what the game's gonna be. And because there's only 8 levels in this game, they really kind of got to get you in. And the levels aren't long, but they're challenging because of the speed of the game. I'm not saying it's a fast game, but it's faster than some other games that have longer levels that seem slower. Kind of like a Ghouls and Ghosts kind of speed of bad guys popping up and you're always thinking, always moving. There's also difficulty control, normal and hard. And I was having trouble on 4th level just getting used to the patterns and stuff in the game. I guess once you knock those out and you really get good, I couldn't even imagine what hard would be like. It's probably pretty hard. Because it was hard for me playing this game 5-6 times I got in before I got to stage 4, and it's like halfway through the game. I'm like, this is challenging. It's a challenging game. And it's good challenging. It's one of those you get angry at yourself because you're like, I should know better, or I should have reacted better. It's not one of those throw the controller because this is janky, this doesn't work, it's just ridiculous.
Bad jumping. Or bad mechanics.
I like the difficulty. It ramps up well. They toss you into the mix right away, and you can adjust it. If you feel hardcore and you've cleared this game, then take your chances at hard. And because the difficulty was done well, I give it a retro double like.
All right, difficulty for me. I like the scaling difficulty, but I feel the game is pretty straightforward in what you need to do to improve, which dragons to use, and what situations you need to use them at. Not just go all in. Keeping track of your gauges. There are gauges there to tell you how much power you have left, or the attacks, or your dragons. I think if you do that, if you are focusing in this game, it can be very easy. Not too easy, but rewardingly easy, if that makes sense. It doesn't punish you. It doesn't feel like they're just made this game to be overly difficult. A lot of games in that era, they just cheated in a way because they had to make the games longer, right? Because they're not very long games.
No.
And a lot of games you could finish in like 50 minutes, not even an hour.
Yep.
So back then they had to cheat and do little trickeries to make the game extend it artificially to make it feel longer, But this game feels like they didn't do that. The difficulty comes from your level of expertise,
That's right.
how much time you put in the game. So for that, I will give difficulty a retro love, because it's not frustrating, and I hate frustrating, so it's the opposite of frustrating. So I reward it for that. Alright, so moving on to Fun Factor. What'd you think of the Fun Factor in Alisia Dragoon, CK?
The game is fun. Again, coming from never playing this game, but, obviously playing similar type games in the same genre as well as similar formats from different consoles, it works. Was not frustrated at all, even after, getting through some of the levels and figuring out what I had to do and getting used to the movement and the spawning and managing your powers, which is a huge part of this game. Managing your dragons and managing your powers is a huge part. And because of that, it gives it that variety that when I go back in to play it again, I don't mind it. When I had to play this 5 and 6 times to play it to get to where I got to, just to really experience the game, I wasn't complaining. I didn't at once ever feel as though I was just struggling to get through it. Like you said, it does have a level of ease, natural. It kind of feels fluid. It's just a game that you enjoy and you play through. And because of that, I liked it. Because I like it, it gets a retro like for me.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. The fun factor for me is really a lot of fun. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. I wrote lots of fun. Dragon companions. Everything in this game is fun. They did nothing in this game to make it, to artificially cheat to make this game harder than it should have to be. A lot of games do that, and I hate that. This game doesn't do that. It's really well done. It's a fun game. Mm-hmm. So for fun, this game, I think you know where I'm going with this.
I think I do.
It is a retro double love for fun. A very, very underrated game from the Sega Genesis. It is definitely one of my favorites, and it's a game that I never played as a kid, so I enjoy it. There's no nostalgia for me. It's just a really awesome game that not a lot of people know of, so if I could help some people like CK discover this game, I'm happy. It's an awesome game, and it deserves a retro double love. So moving on to replay. What do you think of the replay value in Alisia Dragoon?
Replay value is definitely up there for me. After playing this game, I may pop in and play it a couple more times for the sake of just, trying to get through levels that I kind of got stuck at and get better at some of the things that I could have been better at. I like that concept of it, that it's one of those games where it's easy and fun and challenging, and it's this weird kind of concoction. You want to play more because you want to get better, but it's not hard enough to deter you from playing. And every time I picked it up and got, maybe 5-10 minutes in, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember this again. And I played better every time I played the game. So to me, when a game plays like that and feels like that, replay value is usually fairly high. I think it's definitely worth playing, and it definitely has a replay value. I give it a retro-like.
Alright, a retro-like. I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised that you gave it that score. I thought you would give it a little higher score because of everything else seemed to be going towards the love section, or high-end like and love. Clearly this is turning out not to be a very similar review score for us, but that's okay. It started off that way. Alright, replay value. I think the replay is very high because the dragon choosing, and I think that's pretty cool. Who doesn't like dragons, right? Dragons are awesome, and when you got 4 different dragons, you're going to want to try to play the game again after you finish it with a different dragon or another dragon, see which dragon does what. It just makes this game so much more replay to be had because of the choices, the options. It's strategy, and people love strategy. I like strategy. I like to think. I like a game that gives you some choice. This game gives you lots of choices. The powers, the level design, the colors. I say colors a lot because I like colors. I'm an artist type. Yeah. Colors. If the game doesn't have a lot of colors, who likes no colors? People love colors. So yeah, this game has a high replay value for me, so it's going to get a retro love for replay. Alright, so this is the portion of review that we do the influence score. So what did you think of the influence Alisia Dragoon in 20 seconds or less, CK?
I don't know if the game influences things as much as it's been influenced. That to me is one of those chicken for the egg type thing. And because I'm unsure and I don't think anything really has come of it, other than really the naming and the concept of the Dragoon thing, which other games have used, it's gonna get an influence of 1 from me.
Yeah. Alright, so influence for me, I don't really think this game had much influence. Most people are not going to know what this game is. It's a game that flew under the radar in the time period it came out. I never heard of it growing up, so I don't think it had much influence. I'm going to give it a 0 for influence.
Makes sense.
Alright, so this is the portion of review where we flip a coin, and whoever wins this flip will get to choose the next game for our Retro Life reviews. Alright. Alright, so you flipped last time, so I get the flip, and heads as high as always. So here we go.
There it goes.
And it's heads, so I win for the first time ever, which is awesome.
Feels like forever.
It does feel like forever. I don't think I've won much more than 3 times, but hey, doesn't really matter. Alright, so the games that we are going to choose and put into a hat, and then pick one randomly. Royal Rumble for the Super NES.
Yep.
Strider for Sega Genesis.
Yep.
And Golden Axe for also Sega Genesis. And Bad Dudes for the NES. So let's randomize it. And it is Strider for Sega Genesis. So that is our next video retro life review. I think it was easier when we just had people voting. Alright, anyways, I don't know.
We'll get back to that
I don't
one
know.
day.
Alright, so this was a fun game, CK. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for introducing it to me. That's definitely something I enjoyed, and now it's on my radar.
It's definitely a game that a lot of people missed out on, sadly. I missed out on it. You missed out on it. We played other games. So you never know. You can always find games from the past that will come to you in the future or present. And I wouldn't say bite you in the butt, but bite you in the heart. How about that?
There you go.
Alright, so that's all for now, guys. Hope you like this video. Like, subscribe if you do. Oh, and don't forget about that loot box. I think it's pretty cool. And once we get to 100 subscribers, that loot box is going to be activated. I know it's in it, but I'm not telling you. CK doesn't know what's in it.
I don't know what's in it, but I'm excited.
I know, but we can't win it, sadly.
Yeah,
oh, well. Alright, on that note, that's all for now, guys. And I will have more Retro Life content in the weeks, months, and years to come. Bye for now.
Ciao, ciao.